Put that coffee down. Coffee's for closers only.
Oh, have I got your attention now?
I love that intro.
How are we?
What's up?
What's up, guys? Welcome back.
Welcome. Good morning. We're missing somebody, but we're figuring out where he's at. So he should be.
I sent you a text message asking you which one was which on that deal. One of the Muppets.
That's awesome.
I think
Yeah, I know which one it is.
Is it the grumpy
That's
old
our
guy
new profile pics. I'm not bald yet. I'm getting there.
Well, good morning. Good morning, guys. Coffee with Closers. We are excited. We're going to be having two guests on. We have Eric Sage and his partner, Nick, who's not on yet, but he will be. We're trying to figure out where he's at, and he will be joining. So we're going to wait for him before we kind of open up and get going here. But I just wanted to say, guys, how we doing? What's going on? How's your week?
Doing great. Loving the Phoenix weather. You're here. You're actually here too, so that's good.
Oh, it's beautiful right now. Like
No
seven.
golf. Yeah, for me this week, but maybe later.
Yeah, the weather's like
this-
79.
Is
Go
it
on,
like
Dan.
the 3 days of beautiful in Phoenix before it gets hot? Is that what it is?
We're a ways away from that.
Yeah.
It's going to get scorching hot, but
Yeah, wait till like May, and then it'll be like, yeah, this sucks. And we're not even in the heat yet. Heat. We're just warming up.
There today.
Yesterday was like 79.
we might get a little rain today, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Says it's
My 13-year-old just texted me. He goes, "Are we going to get rained out?" So because he wants to golf today this afternoon. I'm like, I don't know.
that's awesome.
The life of my children. That's fantastic.
It's only going to be like 61 today. That's weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I'm
chilly.
gonna go on mute real quick, and I'm gonna call Nick and see what's going on.
It's
Right, well, tell us about
pretty-
you, man.
Yeah, about me or you?
About you.
All right. Well,
Yeah, don't know what you're saying about him.
everything you've heard is not accurate. Well, so obviously my name's Eric Sage. I've been investing in real estate here in Phoenix since 2004, full time. I've done everything from lease options, fix and flip, buy and hold, seller finance, lot splits, all sorts of amazing things. And it's taken me to where I'm at today, which is basically being a note investor. So we buy notes, but we also create them from scratch. And so as a buy and hold investor, which is not a bad thing, but you have risks and you have tenants and you have issues that can come with that. And so my partner Nick here, we created a program called creativedealmaker.com, but basically it's just a platform where we kind of share what we do. And so our business model is cash now, cash flow, and cash later with a lump sum payout. And by doing that, what we do is we go out and find wholesale properties. Networking. We don't have acquisition teams. We have very small systems for that, and we market. We actually market to other wholesalers and fix and flippers that eventually are going to get tired of waking up on Monday looking at their KPIs and going, "Okay, I have to do another wholesale deal. I have to do another fix and flip. I have to." These are all the things. So why don't we do this? Why don't we just eliminate that and get to cash flow immediately? And so, an example of a deal, we were just talking with a gal yesterday. She's going to buy a house. By the way, we love Texas. The landlord laws, the foreclosure laws, and the demographic of our borrowers is fantastic in Texas. So we love Texas. We also love the housing prices are still good there. So we do this nationwide, but mainly, so we talked to one of our gals that we're partnering with there. She found a house for $130,000. That's basically ready to go, turnkey. It's on the MLS. And I think I don't know why it's so cheap, but she's able to pick it up and she'll pick it up for $130,000, maybe a little less, and sell it on terms for 175,000. And I mean, we were backing into the numbers. I mean, depending on how creative she wants to be and her risk, she could make anywhere from $800 to $300 a month, depending on what she wants to do with that property. But the reason we get cash now is because what we do is we acquire a property, and then we do little to no rehab. Gavin and I were just talking about rehabs. He says he'll have his house done in about 3 weeks, and that means like 6 weeks in real life. But anyway, we do little to no rehab, and when we acquire the property, then we resell it on terms, and then we create a first and second. We sell the first. So by selling that first, guess what happens to our risk? It goes to zero, because we don't owe anyone any money. We're not doing the Burr method. We're not borrowing a bunch of money. We're not being responsible for a bunch of debt. We're just creating home ownership to people that are deserving borrowers that are just not bankable with the traditional banking system. And so anyway, we create the first, keep the second free and clear, and we get a down payment. And that down payment that we get after paying fees still gives us some cash up front, which is typically we're making more on our cash up front than our wholesalers are that are selling us their deals that they're having a hard time selling, because they don't fit that box where they want a certain dollar amount to give to their seller. We call them grandma houses, where they still need $30,000 worth of rehab, right? Yeah. But if a rehabber comes in and puts $30,000 into rehab into it, there's really not enough money. There's not a lot of money left over. So with that said, we are able to give some of that back to our borrowers so they can go put some sweat equity into the deal. And my partner, what? He's in, he's out. He's in, he's out.
Hey, I just spoke to him, and he literally blamed it all on you.
Hey, let me say something here. Between my VAs in the Philippines, Eric in Phoenix, who never changes times, Don in California, and the real world that works on Texas time, I have a time management issue I can't solve. Anyway.
He has an automatic release in his body at 10 o'clock, and so that's probably what left him there. He had his morning smoothie.
Yeah, our conversation I should have played. He's like, "Hey man, how you doing?"
What's up, guys?
I was like, "Yeah, we're on live," and he's like, "Yeah."
Did you really forget?
He's like, "In an hour, I'll be there in an hour."
It was noon. I thought it was noon, and it is noon if you're in New York.
I did say noon Eastern, 9 Pacific.
Texas.
Great. Well, anyway, you're here.
I hate being late.
Hey, I've already given them all this the tricks of a trade. So that's all I have.
You know what I usually do is when Eric comes in late or somebody comes in late to a meeting, I go, and that's how you make $1 million in 2 hours. Throws everybody away and say, "Oh."
I'm not going to repeat that. All right. So hopefully,
you guys, I hope you took good notes, because I forgot what I just told you.
We don't have a replay for this recording. Sorry,
this is not recorded.
Okay. We got. So you said something, and I wanted to ask a question about it. I know you're in the middle of telling your story when Nick jumped in and totally interrupted it and disrailed all of us. That's okay.
Yeah.
But you were talking about
life of this is what happens to us in real life every time.
Why it takes us 4 hours to do a 30-minute presentation.
So you were talking about creating the first and then selling the first and keeping the second, right?
Yep.
And so just curious as to how do you protect that second? What's the timeline of that second? And the reason why, let me give you the reason why I asked, and maybe you guys are doing something a lot smarter than what I did, but pre-crash, I wasn't doing a first, but what I was doing was I was taking a house and, I buy it for 150, I put 50 into it. I'd sell it for 350. And then you would do like a loan for 280, and then I'd carry a second for 70. So I would make my money, and then I would carry a second for the difference. And I did that on a lot of properties, because I thought I was being smart and setting myself up for success I don't have to get out of bed money, right? And then 2008 happened. And 2008 wiped out the value on all those properties. And so I was lucky, like on $80,000 loan, I got a $3,000 payout in the middle of a short sale, and some didn't pay out, and so on and so forth. So a lot of those seconds got wiped out. So I'm just curious, like, what are you guys doing to protect the downside? Assuming, now I don't believe 2008 is going to happen again in a lifetime, because I don't think it's going to happen that bad. We have crazy stuff right now. But what are you doing to protect your downside to not have those just get wiped out? And I don't want to hit you with a hard question right at the beginning, but I'm just curious because that was my experience. Like I said, you may do something a hell of a lot smarter than I did.
No, we literally were on a call yesterday, and someone asked the same question: is how do you protect yourself?
You're not going to answer that question that we are smarter than Don. I mean, just I would leave that one sit out there. Just
because
when you're $20 million worth of assets, you buy for 10 million that go from 20 to 10 value to go to 5 million in value. Is that the question you're asking? Like, what happens to all that money?
What happens to all that money? Because I had houses that were worth 350 that I sold for 280, took a note for 70 that went from 350 down to 2, right? And
so what happened? So are you saying that then it went all the way down, then they defaulted? Is that what you're saying?
The majority of them defaulted and went into foreclosure, and they weren't worth bailing out. Or I got, like I said, a handful of them did short sales, and I got small payouts.
Were you over leveraged?
But the majority, over leveraged.
Over leveraged.
Yeah. Well, I was taking the full retail value, but the thing is that, if I sell it for 280 and I get my 80 grand, I do a note for 70. You would think maybe 50 get wiped out and I keep 20, but what was
the value? The true value.
We were 100% financed. If that's what you're asking. So at that point we were 100% financed. I was
including the second or just the first.
Including the second.
So the 380 was 100%. That's 100%.
350 was 100%. Yeah.
And you did. What kind of down payment did you get?
Well, so like I said, they would finance the first loan with a bank, and so I would be 200 in, and I would make 80.
Okay.
I'd sell it for 280. I'd sell it for 350, but I carried a second for 70, and so I got my money. Don't get me wrong, I got money up front. It wasn't like I was asked out totally. I got money up front, but that 70,000. The difference, like on that particular loan, there were $50,000 loans, $70,000 loans, $100,000 loans, but they all pretty much got wiped out. Like there was no that was such an interesting crash, an interesting market that the values dropped significantly. People weren't buying.
So your credit wasn't damaged. Your equity position, whatever. And what kind of were you getting payments on that 70,000 or whatever?
No, they were balloons. Yeah, they were balloons.
Yeah. Well.
No, and I may have set them up wrong.
The landscape's entirely different than today for a lot of different reasons, right? First of all, there are no more balloons. Balloons are no longer around. There's arms, but there's not balloons, right? That's one thing. There's no subprime like we used to know it. There's not it's hard to over leverage. Banks are just harder to. What happens now is that rates are historically low, but no one can go get these notes, these mortgages. You think they can because the selected few that get the golden ticket can go out and get it, right? But the number is depending on where you get your fake news from, it's anywhere between 55 and 70% of the general population can't go qualify for a bank mortgage. Okay, so rates are historically low, but you can't go get it. I can't go down to the bank and get a loan. I could have 100 times the amount of cash in the bank, and they're not going to qualify me because I got multiple companies. There's just a lot of things. I'm self-employed. I'm not a pretty buyer in the bank's eyes. There's a lot of that out there. That's why the seller financing angle is such a critical component moving forward, because we see there's a shortage of inventory in some people's eyes, right? And really, where is the inventory at? But the question really comes to back, how do you actually get qualified to buy today? And I think that's the biggest challenge that we see in the marketplace. So,
let me answer that question.
As a result of that, the borrowers that are getting qualified today, they go through a lot more stringent underwriting criteria and guidelines than we ever did 10 years ago. And we see that happen immediately. I want to say one thing on this, on stats, Eric, then you can jump in. In March of 2020, when COVID first hit, if there was 100 bank loans in the pipe ready to be funded from a borrower, what I call a pretty buyer, a W-2 buyer, worked at Frito-Lay, all that stuff, right? 100 out of 100 of them would be qualified. Fast forward to August of 2020, only about 65 or 70 of that same borrower pool would actually qualify, with nothing changing in the underwriting file. So the income didn't change, the DTI didn't change, Nothing changed. What changed was the lender's propensity for risk. Really, at the end of the day, that's what happened.
The environment itself changed.
The environment changed. That's exactly what happened. And as a result of that, those loans today, I would say, are better quality notes that are being written by institutions because they really
well,
hammer
100% they're better quality. They're not giving it to anyone that asked for one.
Right.
Yeah.
At this point, they're saying, hey, we want to make sure you can fulfill this agreement, right?
It's all federally insured anyway. Most of the stuff is, but
well, on this though, like on Don's example, right, that he said that this is what he did. So what should he have done? What would you guys do if it was exactly the same situation today?
Well, you had a second lien, right?
So I want to be just very, very clear. Like I bought a property, I rehabbed it, and I resold it, and I carried the second note. And so I got my money up front. I'm just wondering, is there a way to protect? You guys have a way to protect that second note, assuming something happens? You have an exit strategy, or is it just a matter of if something happens, you lose some of those, you made your money already, and you're fine? And maybe that's the case.
You have a second lien. One of the things, and you're right, the environment is different. Like, why those borrowers defaulted, I have a feeling, was because their loans were adjustable.
Right.
Okay.
The majority of them.
So it's like if we rewound back and said that loan was for that, whatever loan that they qualified for, was it 4% interest, 30-year fixed with no prepayment penalty? Where are they going to move? Even if it went down to 150, so then rewind, goes down to 150, and they just keep paying, and then eventually the cycle comes around, and then you get you have to make a business decision, if they want to short sale or not. But nowadays, if that happens, guess what I do is we get a first right of refusal to buy the house back. So that's one scenario. So if they go to sell and you're like, well, you have to move, you're upside down, you owe me money. How about I'll just buy it back from you or create some sort of an agreement that way. That's one thing. 2, you walk away from it and just let your loan go away. 3, let it just sit and wait and accumulate. Because believe me, I had deals 11 years ago that I did exactly what you did. And guess what happened the last couple months? They're like, hey, we're refinancing. Oh, I forgot you bailed me out of foreclosure 11 years ago when I was going to lose my house. And now I owe you $79,000. Yeah, you do, unfortunately. But guess what happened to your house? It tripled in value. So they were going to have 0 a few years ago. Now they've refixed their credit and their life changed, and now they're back in business. And it was a win-win for all of us involved because I got paid for my ability to help them in that situation. So I think that it's a great question for us. The way we run our business is we're making money on the front end, right? We're getting monthly cash flow. We're not doing a balloon or deferred payments. And
I think that we're not putting ourselves in that position to begin with, right? So
if we didn't get paid on half of our loans,
look, if it doesn't pass the test on the beginning, we don't do the deal, right? It's just that simple. So we're not.
And our borrowers are putting some serious skin in the game. Okay. Mm-hmm. And guess what? Most of our borrowers are not going to go out. They're moving. Their ability to move. First of all, majority of our borrowers 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, have never ever been a homeowner. They've rented their whole lives because that's all they knew. That's all they had the opportunity to do. So now all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, they're moving into a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. They gave us $20,000 down, and they're paying pretty close to what rent would be. And they can pay us for the next 30 years. Yeah. I mean, so this isn't the same environment.
It's not the same scenario. I was selling to retail buyers in a hot inflated market.
Sure.
And the other part of the climate too, which I hope we never see again, is a lot of the people who defaulted in 2008, 9, and 10 literally didn't have a reason to default. They just walked away from the homes because the values weren't worth what they were. And they
didn't put any skin in the game. They have no skin.
They didn't have skin in the game. They didn't think it was going to come back. So there were so many people that did the strategic default. They just walked away. And, and that was part of the environment as well.
Could we go after them for a judgment? Could we do stuff like that? Yeah, we could, but it's not. I don't think financially it's worth it. The problem is
the fault. That's the fault of the lending institutions. I mean, they made bad loans. Let's be honest. They made bad loans, and the government bailed them out. That's what happened. They got their one get out of jail free card. Guess what we don't do? We don't write bad loans. It's not part of the DNA. It's not part of the protocol. And if you write bad loans, that's the price that you can pay. It's only a problem when it becomes a problem at the end of the day. As long as that borrower pays, it's never a problem, right? Doesn't matter if the property goes up in value or down in value or sideways in value. It doesn't matter until they go into a default situation. Then you got a problem that you got to be able to prepare to solve. So
typically our notes our first liens are bought by private investors, other groups. If there is a problem and we're in second position and we're the one that originated and found the deal and I don't say know the borrowers because we don't know our borrowers. We know who our borrowers are demographically and the avatar of our borrower, but we can come along. We would love to have the house back because guess what? If it's a long-term problem for our borrower, we're going to help them. I mean, that's the biggest challenge and why the market had this massive crash is the banks didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to.
Let me tell you something.
That's why I had 250 short sales that I did because I helped solve the problem. I mean, we made more money during the crash than the rise.
That's not a good business. That's not a good business strategy or model, though. Let's be honest. But it just happened to happen that way. But I will tell you this: the number of our borrowers weren't the problem of the demise of 2008. I will tell you that right now. I've probably written almost 1,000 creative financing deals, almost 1,000 of them. I can probably count on two hands how many defaults we had. Was that because that our buyers don't default? No, because we put them in as a position to succeed from the beginning.
But they can afford the payment that was given to them versus all the variable interest rates that made it very difficult, right?
Those people were put in a position to fail from the very beginning. When you have no equity into a deal and you have no skin in the game and you have a property that's going to go down in value, you lose. Here's the deal. At the end of the day, it's a 75% first lien position that we make available. Either we keep it or we sell it. So let's just take, for sake of argument, a $200,000 transaction sale price. The first lien's at $150,000. The buyer gives us 10% down, which is $20,000. Our profit is some of that cash and the $30,000 second. When I sell that first lien, to a note buyer, or we keep it, and their risk is $150,000 on a $200,000 asset, they got a pretty good chance they're not going to lose money on that deal. They have a pretty good chance. I'm not saying they won't. They could. The property value drop down to $120,000. Yes, highly unlikely. The numbers I see, that ain't going to happen anytime soon. There's too much of a shortage on demand. But let's just say arguably it did. Well, they have a lot better chance of getting their money back than if they lent $200,000 on a $200,000 property. That ain't going to happen, right? So,
well, no, but a lot of people sell that house, that $200,000 property, the true market value, because we're selling our home, we're buying wholesale, selling retail, true retail, right? And then we're not selling for $250,000. There's a lot of people that talk about lease options and stuff, and they inflate the price to protect appreciation, right? All our appreciation is in amortization. That's a tough one to say, tongue twister. But yes, if you look at an amortization calculator, it's unbelievable, like how that works. And that's we're making 4 to 5% a year just on the amortization benefit of being the lender.
All right, guys, I gotta interrupt and I gotta take us back to the beginning here. So I've been listening for the last 25 minutes, and we started out with Don comparing his business from the past to what you guys are doing now. And then we jumped into some examples. I've been in real estate for a minute. I know what you guys are talking about, but here's the thing. A lot of our listeners and our viewers, they might be new to this game, right? They may not have done hundreds of wholesale deals or thousands of transactions. Do you guys mind taking us back and explaining what it is you guys do and simplify this so that the listeners and the viewers can kind of catch up to the rest of us here?
I tried that, and then Nick, the note guy, showed up.
We were on a call yesterday with the guy, and he goes, when Nick and Eric slow it down, it's still 1,000 times more.
That's why I sent you the Muppet picture.
We gave you the The light version. So here's the simple. Let's just.
Well, don't give us the heavy one.
I'm waiting to see if they answer the question.
Yeah, I was like, I'm never going to be able to
Hey,
do this.
I was there. I was so close.
We don't
Go
have.
ahead. Go ahead, Nick.
Do you guys? Does this expire at a certain amount of time? You got to pay overtime for the fee. Here's what we're ultimately looking for. This is a great model. If you're a landlord, you can convert from being a landlord to a lien lord. And what I mean by that is getting cash flow by not owning, but by controlling. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. That's what banks do, right? Banks don't own anything. They control everything, right? We want to think, act, and be a bank. That's my personal strategy. That's what I do. I learned a long time ago, if it's good enough for the bank, it's good enough for most. Okay. You don't get the depreciation, but I do get amortization. That's fine. I always said if amortization was that big of a deal, if depreciation was that big of a deal, banks would probably, as greedy as they are, would figure out a way to get that too. Okay. But that's not the point. So what we want to do is we got to find the right, just like if you're a wholesaler, there are certain deals are better to wholesale than others, right? Certain deals are better for fix and flip than others. Certain deals are better for buy and hold than others, right? It depends on the property. So I'm making that general assessment right now that we understand that, right? So in our seller financing model, okay, I want to talk about the avatar for a second, then I want to talk about the statistics, the statistical side of it, the economics. The avatar is very simple, okay? We're looking for grandma houses. At the end of the day, we're looking for grandma's house, okay? Everybody ever been to grandma's house? Grandma kept a really clean house. Grandma could be a hoarder, but my grandma was not, all right? She was clean, but they didn't spend a lot of money on updates and upgrades, and they didn't care about that, right? They still had 20-year-old linoleum floors, but the kitchen was clean. It was tidied up. You would go stay there when you visited, and you would have no problem doing it, okay? That's what we're looking for, because when we sell or finance to these properties, the number one priority for the people that are buying it is home ownership, okay? They want to own versus rent. 80% of renters rent because they have to, not because they want to. Well, that's a good statistic to have in our back pocket if we want to be a seller finance seller, right? The second thing is that when we have grandma's house, okay, and we know that the buyer is okay with doing those repairs if you're doing it over time, a fix and flipper, for example, what are they going to come and say and do? They're going to say, oh my God, it's got 1970s brown carpet in there. It's got 12-inch brown tile, and it's got stucco on the ceilings, popcorn on the ceilings, right?
Stucco,
stickum, popcorn on the ceiling.
Popcorn.
They got hot stuff.
Acoustic ceiling.
They got ceiling stuff that no one likes the ceiling stuff anymore, right? So the ceiling stuff's got to come down. Well, but to a fix and flipper that's going to sell it for retail, there's going, oh, I got to fix that. I got to upgrade the white appliances to stainless. I got to put granite instead of having the Home Depot Formica counters, right? That has some value, but it doesn't have as much value to the end buyer. That's one thing. And we're able to monetize that opportunity where others cannot. That's number one. Since we are writing on terms, right, and we're getting an interest rate and we're collecting interest in the form of amortization, and we're getting an amortization on our pay down, the best thing you guys can do is go understand what amortization is. Go run an amortization schedule. Anybody ever owned a house, go look and see what you started at and see what you owe today. And you go, holy crap, those banks are crooks at the end of the day. You know, you started $100,000 today and you have a 7% mortgage, and you look at it 10 years from now and you still owe $96,000.
Why do they call you after year 7 and go, hey, you want to refinance and save $22 a month? Sure, I'll do that. And then
Start all over.
The cycle of
Start
life.
all over again. You know, guys, this would be back in the day. Banks, you used to be able to buy stuff on assumable loans, right? You used to buy, business has been traded all for years on seller financing. Seller financing is not something new, but the banks and the government have tried to take it away. That's why Dodd-Frank's here. Dodd-Frank's not here because they want to protect the borrower. Are you kidding me? Dodd-Frank's in place because they're trying to keep you from seller financing a property to me. They want you to go through the conventional means because everybody gets their hands greased when you do it that way. Doesn't mean you have to do it that way. Look, seller financing is a $25 billion a year business. $25 billion a year of paper, mortgages, mortgage notes, whatever you want to call them, that's written every year by people like Eric, myself, small cap lenders that aren't named Chase, Wells Fargo, Citibank. Okay. Now, $25 billion is not a big number in comparison to the government debt, but $25 billion is still arguably a big number that most people don't even know that even exists. Not only do they don't know that there's that big of a seller financing market, they don't even know that they can be the bank. Think about that for a second, right? That they can actually be the bank in this whole situation. And being a bank means what Don was talking about earlier is writing the note and carrying some form of paperback on it. So the one other thing I want to say on this statistically, this is really important. Seller financing, I look at everything like economics 101. Okay. I was an okay student, but I'm surely not a financial expert or an economist. But I did learn one thing in college called economics 101, which is supply and demand. Okay. Here's what I do know. The amount of supply, which is the ability to buy with seller financing, is extremely low. You think inventory is low for traditional buyers? Go find out how much inventory is available for non-traditional buyers. It's, what do you think, Eric? 5% if we're being generous?
No, well, you can go and you can plug it in and put, I want to buy a house with seller finance, and if it's on MLS or Zillow or wherever, and plug that in, it's like 3%. It's non-existent, right?
Well, let's just give it.
And then you go put you just want to buy a house. So
for every 100 houses that are for sale, okay, regardless if that's a lot of inventory or a lot, 95 of them are available on traditional purchases, retail sales. 5 are available with seller financing. Okay. So if we know that only 5 out of 100 are available in seller financing, okay, and we know that 70 to maybe, well, let's say 60% of the general population can't qualify traditionally and they need seller financing. I mean, I think that's a good position to be on the side of the demand and have.
Absolutely. I don't think anybody's arguing that. I think that I'm having a disconnect, and I'm sure that that a lot of the listeners and viewers can relate to the process, right? So let's do if you guys don't mind, let's do like a 90-second strategy session with Dave. Dave buys hundreds of houses a year. I have almost 100 rental property doors. I've done a couple seller finance, done a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So I come across grandma's house. All right. And I can buy grandma's house for $100,000. Is the next step to buy the house, or do I lock it up with the contract?
Well, I think you got to look. Are we going to make the assumption that this is a potential seller financing exit? Is that what we're saying?
Absolutely. Okay. That's what you guys are going to talk about. Let's talk about that. Absolutely. Yeah, okay. So we stumble across grandma's house. I can get a really, really good deal on it, and it's going to make for a really good seller finance play. But I'm talking to grandma, and I make her an offer, and it's a really good offer. What do I do next? What's the next step?
And let's do the worst case scenario is she just wants cash and she will not carry back. You want to do that?
Perfect. Because that's what we want to do. It works most of the time, right?
Most of the time.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And this is what our
let's add more layer to it. You're going to go borrow it and you're going to pay hard money at.
No, we're going to go through our process with that exact scenario.
Okay, cool.
So here let's just say I have a house.
And guys, I appreciate this. This is going to really help a lot of the listeners because everybody on this call is a seasoned pro, or you wouldn't be here, right? The listeners, not so much. They're here to learn. So thank you, guys.
Well, I didn't get coffee and I didn't get donuts, so I'm not sure how long I'm going to be sticking around.
I got enough for all of us. I'm on cup number 6
do my best, man. So let's just use your example. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to figure out if this is a good deal or not for seller financing, right? It might be a good deal for a fix and flip. It may be a good deal for buy and hold. Well, I don't care about any of those strategies. I'm only care about seller finance. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the $100,000, okay, and I'm going to divide, because it's a lower price property. I'm going to divide that by 0.72, okay. So I'm going to so when I divide that by 0.72%, that means my minimum, what I call my minimum owner finance value, has to be about $140,000. Okay. So what I need to do then is say, is this house, can I sell this house to an owner finance buyer that can't go get bank qualifying, that can't get a property either because there's none available? Can I find a buyer that will pay me $140,000 for this house? That's my first question. You follow me so far?
Yep.
That's not the retail value and it's not the ARV. That's what I need. That's the minimum.
Can I sell it for at least 142 if I can buy it for 100? Let's assume the ARV is 180 to 200 and it only needs 20 grand, right? So it's a pretty good deal in that case.
100. So then that's the next thing I'm going to do. Okay, so I'm going to establish the line in the sand and go, for me to be profitable, okay, and we'll go through that in a second, I have to at least sell it for $140,000 and 10% down. That's the minimum requirement. So now the question is it worth $140,000? And that's where you came in and say, well, I think it's worth $180,000 repair. Okay, well, we're not going to repair anything. So let's just say it needs $20,000 in repairs. Then I would probably do a reduction on that sales price and give them a credit of not towards
it's a price reduction. Just a price reduction.
Price reduction. So if let's say it's $30,000 in rehab, I might give them a $10,000 discount. They can go do their own repairs.
But Nick, why, if it's $30,000, why do you only give them $10,000 in reduction on that?
Because one of the most expensive parts of a rehab is the labor.
Yep.
And they can pay themselves for their own labor, right?
Because they're going to go put their sweat equity into it and make it that 180 to 200. We're going to give them the material discount.
Yeah. So
rather than the full discount, we're giving a material discount. People love it.
So in this example, let's say it's worth 180 and we sell it. So we can sell it at 160 with the discount and still in line what it would be if we fix it. Follow me? Right.
Yeah. So are we buying the house or not though?
Yes. We're buying.
We're going to go get private money, hard money, use our own money.
We're going to get we're a new investor. Okay.
Don's going dark on us.
We door knocked the house. We found your grandma over there. She's ready to go to a retirement home, and she hasn't renovated the house in 30 years. But you can use the restrooms, you can use the showers, you can walk in it.
Yeah, it's dated, but it's livable.
It's livable.
Right.
Okay. So now I've never done a deal before, or maybe I've heard about it, saw it on the internet, and now I have no money, but I have a deal. And I saw Nick and Eric today talking about this. Now what? I have no cash. How do I get this deal done? So now go ahead, Nick. What do you do now? You go get
so after I know that this is a deal, that's what you were asking first.
Wait, well, one more thing you got to bring up. What else do we look at? We look at what rents are in the neighborhood and make sure that rent price fits with the payment that we're going to provide for principal, interest, tax, and insurance, and servicing fees. Okay.
Cool. So we write this lady an offer for $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do next?
So then we would go, and how would you normally go and buy a property, right? So some people will pay cash for it. Some people will go get private money for it. Some people will have a hard money lender for it. Some might use a line of credit to go get it. Home equity loan. There's a lot. It's no different than
anything. Okay, you don't need to explain that part. The disconnect I'm having is we are actually going to buy it though, regardless of what we do, who we partner with, where we get the money from. Yeah, we're buying it. So
we're buying this house.
Step one, find a deal. Step two, secure the deal.
Yeah.
All right. Lots of ways to do that. That's not what we're here to talk about. We're talking about the process today.
We're not going to.
Now we've secured a deal, and it's a deal, guys.
Can I ask one question?
To 200, it needs 20. We're paying 100. Now that we have secured the deal, grandma moves out. We have a vacant house that we own. It's deeded in our name, correct?
Yes.
We have a 30-day closing. We probably put up $100, $500, $1,000 in earnest money.
Hopefully, we borrow 100% of the 100. I do.
We know we're going to borrow over 100%.
Got it. So now the deed's in our name. The house has been vacated. Step 3. I got to keep you guys on track. Step 3.
Well, so it basically is no different than a fix and flip to that point, right? It's really what it is. You're buying it, you're fixing it, but you're not fixing it, but you're looking at it like that, right?
You're fixing it in the way that you're presenting it to the buyer as if they can do it and that you're going to work with them and give them a deal.
Yeah.
So on,
Not
so
necessarily
forth.
literally fixing it
Got
from
it.
the
So
standpoint
step
of
3 would be to market the property to the
Yep.
population that can't qualify on their own. They say, hey, I'd love to be a homeowner. And then you say, I'm going to even make it sweet for you. I'm going to finance it to you, and I'm going to give it to you at a good price. And I'm even going to discount that price a little bit to help cover materials. Am I wrong?
That's pretty damn close. Yeah, you're right on.
Okay.
You're right on the mic.
What'd I miss?
You didn't miss anything. You're
Perfect.
right on.
So step 3 is market the deal.
Yeah.
Yep.
Step 4, once you find this guy that says, yeah, this is actually something I could do, right? I can't get a loan from a bank, but you're willing to work with me and you're giving me a price that's, fair to where I can buy it and move into it and live there, or I can fix it up over time, so on and so forth. So how do you go about that next step after you find the person that's raising their hand to say, hey, I'm interested? What's the next step there, guys?
Well, then you do a purchase and sale agreement like you would with a regular buyer, and then you have to we're going to say do best business practices. You're going to have to use what's called an RMLO. An RMLO,
residential loan officer, right?
Mortgage loan originator. All the banks have their own, but individuals do not, right? So you have to find a third-party RMLO. This is what Dodd-Frank says, and you have to go and what they do is they collect all the borrower information on behalf of the seller, which is you. So all this stuff, you just need to control it, but you don't do it, right? Just like the title company, you need to find the title company, but you don't need to know what the title company does on the documentation side. So then you get the RMLO, and they take the buyer, goes to the RMLO, or submits their documents, validates them.
Let me
say again.
Stop. And the reason, let me stop you right there. And the reason why is because we want to make sure we have a qualified buyer. And that
we want to show that the borrower has the ability to pay. That's the most important part of a seller finance buyer.
That we're not being predatory.
We're not saying who gives me the most down payment, and then you can move in and do whatever you want. No, we're actually underwriting. How many documents are in your? It's 83 pages that are in our documents. It's the real deal. It's not, and that's why we get the most for our notes.
Yeah, this is not a game, man. So and the reason why this all has to be done, one, because it's what banks do, and we talked about thinking, acting, and being the bank. But two, when you go to exit out of, and I'll get back to you in a second, David. But since Don brought up the underwriting and the qualified mortgages, conforming and all that stuff, the reason why it's the most important from us from a business perspective, it's what allows us to get the most money for that first lien that we're creating. Okay, I used the example of an Ford F-150. Okay, and you can have two identical 2016 Ford F-150 pickup trucks. They're both white with tan interior. They have 60,000 miles on them. Okay, but the difference is one has been meticulously taken care of. The oil's changed, the service records documented, it's pristine condition, had all the servicing done, and the other one's been on the farm and been beat to shit, and it looks like it to go with it. Which one of those is worth more money, right?
Right.
That's the difference, okay? That's why when you go to underwriting, it's so important. That's where a lot of people make the mistake that do write notes. They don't follow that protocol, that $25 billion we talked about. I would say 95% of those notes are not written correctly. So understanding what that checklist looks like is super important. Now, you don't have to do it yourself. The first step is the RMLO. Then the next step is servicing the note with a third-party servicer. And all that means is that borrower is going to make a payment to the servicer. The servicer, if anybody's ever had a mortgage, they may have had their servicer changed, right? All it is where you make your payment to. The servicer takes that payment and disperses it accordingly. Really, really important. You don't want to self-service mortgage notes. Number two. The third thing is the way the papers are written from the closing documents and all the disclosures. That's handled at the title company level and the attorney, and that's all part of just the process. And then from there, the property is closed like a traditional closing. We use title companies or attorneys, depending on where you are. It gets closed, and now you have the transactions completed, and that's where we are right now. So before we go any further, David, what questions do you have based on that piece?
No, you explained it, and I know this stuff, guys. By all means, I'm trying to break it down and make it simple for the listeners and the viewers, right? So I think we skipped a step there. So step one, we market to find deals.
Yeah.
Anybody that's in real estate, that's always step one. If you're new, start there, right? Market to find deals. Step two, we find a deal, grandma's house. We're able to buy it at a great price, and we do so. We secure financing, funding, partner, lines of credit, private hard money, whatever. It's irrelevant, but we actually buy and close on this house. Okay. Step three is we market again. Guys, you notice how I'm using that word market a lot? That's the business we're in. We're marketing again to find these buyers that can't qualify on their own. They're not going to get bank approval for a loan, but we can help them, right? We find these people. Then once we find somebody that we think is going to be a great fit, we hire a residential mortgage loan officer. Maybe I'm saying that wrong, but a third party, basically to make sure that they are lendable, even though it might not be through their local bank. And then we go and we close on it, but we missed some steps there. We create a note because they're not bringing capital to the table like a traditional closing. A traditional closing, somebody has a deed, somebody has a bag of cash, and they exchange those two things. In this scenario, there's no bag of cash, maybe a small bag, but not 100% purchase of those assets. So do you guys mind explaining that step that we skipped over?
Well,
you understand what I'm asking in terms of you're creating a note. The deed's transferring, but
it's no different than a traditional. It's no different than a traditional sale. The only difference is that I'm the bank, you're the bank, instead of going down the chase to get the mortgage. So
I think what David's trying to ask is how do we exit out of the deal?
Yeah, in a traditional sale, regardless if there's a loan or not, money is wired in and wired out, and that's not happening in this scenario. That's the disconnect that people are having.
We haven't got to that part yet.
Okay, cool.
So here, let's use round math, okay? Because it's easier to calculate. Let's just say the sale price was $200,000, okay? The down payment from the borrower was 10%, which was $20,000. That means there's $180,000 worth of notes that have to be written to bring it to the full value, right? So we're going to write a 75% first, which is $150,000, right? We're going to write a $30,000 second, which is the 15%, and then we're going to take that first lien and we're going to sell it on the open market. So I think what you're asking is how does that happen? Well,
no, you just explained it because there's two ways to transfer a deed. One is with cash. The other is with a promise to pay cash later.
Absolutely.
And that's the disconnect.
These aren't contract for deeds. When we sell, they own. They have the deed. They get the deed.
Yeah, but they have an underlying mortgage. They have debt.
Yeah.
They have
a promise to pay. No different than when you go buy a car loan or go get a car or go get a house. So the question is how do you get paid?
So meanwhile, though, we still owe our private lender.
Yes.
Even though we bought the house, deed went into our name, then we found a buyer and sold it to that buyer. Deed's now out of our name, but we still have a private lender that we owe all this money to.
Yes. Okay. So let's get to that. We're getting close. So we have to. What we're doing is a wrap mortgage, technically, right? A wrap mortgage is taking existing debt and wrapping a new mortgage on top of it, right? So the existing debt can be the private money loan, the hard money loan, the sub-2 loan. It can be your whatever you put in the deal, and you're going to wrap it for a short period of time. And we have to disclose that to the buyer. So now we did all that, and now we have a $150,000 loan, and we have debt that you're saying to the hard money lender, right? So now we have to take that $150,000 loan, that note, and we have to sell it so we can pay off our debt, okay? And there's a market for all of those notes that are traded. Just like you can buy and sell houses, you can buy and sell notes too. USA Note Pro, we're note buyers, right? And the value of the note is predicated on how good of a job you did underwriting the buyer. Okay, see now
it really comes from the residential mortgage loan officer, essentially.
Yes.
Anyway,
and the property itself, and the borrower file, how much down payment, all those things, all that collateral file.
All that matters. Yeah.
Yes, that's so. Now let's say we're going to sell that $150,000 loan, and let's say we can sell it for $140,000. Okay, we have a.
Just say 90%. 90% of the note value.
I'm just using easy math. 140. Okay. Say it's 140. Okay. Right. Let's just say, for sake of argument, your payoff is $145,000. Okay. So we collected 140. but we owed our lender 145, so we're 5 in the hole. Well, guess what we got? We got cash from the down payment, right? So that some of that cash from the net of the transaction will help pay off that underlying debt. So let's just say, sake of argument, that we were able to sell that note, pay off the underlying debt, and now what are we left with? This is really what we're getting to here. Well, what we're left with is the transactional cash from the net proceeds of all those transactions, which if we got 20 down, maybe we're left with 10, okay? And we're also left with a free and clear second lien because there's no debt anymore, right? The debt got wiped out when we paid off the hard money loan, okay? So that's gone now. So now in this example, maybe we have $10,000 cash. That's our profit on the deal, but we also got a amortized 30-year mortgage at $30,000 paying 8, 9, 10%, whatever we wrote it for. That's our profit on the deal. Okay.
Love it. Okay. Guys, great job. Thank you for doing that. And great job explaining it.
And that's how you make $1 million. Hope you guys just enjoying this call.
And then now the process comes together. So that, yeah,
this is like explaining enemy stuff on your day. This is like explaining rocket science to a 5-year-old in 30 minutes.
So when we go back to the beginning, and I said you got to divide it by, take the acquisition cost and divide it by the 0.72 if it's under $150,000. Guess what that does? It puts everything in alignment to what we just got done talking about, right? So if that's your acquisition price and it fits that model, that's pretty much your line in the sand where you're going to be pretty close to cash neutral. Maybe you don't make $10,000 cash. Maybe you make $500, but you still get the free and clear second as the profit on the deal.
Love it. So that's really the game, is creating that free and clear second that's paid out over 30 years. However, if they refinance, you get all of it back.
You can call that the happy dance. It's a happy dance day because you just have a $30,000 payoff.
Yeah, we don't have time for right now, but go run an amortization table, pick a number, put it in there, throw it up there, and look and see how slow the principal pay down is on a 30-year mortgage. It's brutal.
Well, it takes 30 years.
But if you're on the bank side, that's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
Right?
It's front loaded.
If I write a 30, let's use this example right here. Okay. Eric, get your calculator handy. Take 30 years, 10% on $30,000. Okay. And tell me what the payment is. And while I'm talking about the payment side of it that we're going to collect in cash flow, because this is important.
The payment's $263 a month.
Okay. Now tell me what the 10-year payoff is on that in a second. So $263. Okay. So we just did this little funky dance, right? A-B transaction buy, B-C transaction sell. Let's say we got zero cash on the deal, and now we got $260 a month cash flow. Hey, I don't know about you guys, but $260 net, if that's a rental, that's a pretty good deal.
And but guess what happens with most of the burrs that you guys have? Debt. You have debt.
Yeah.
That's dumb.
That's Dave. What's that?
I said, Dave's the bird guy. He can speak.
No, I know. Yeah. So let's just say it costs you.
Maybe he doesn't have any debt and he's just happy with that. But most guys leverage.
Let's say it's $260 a month cash flow. Okay. That's free and clear. That's net. I mean, that goes right in the back of the pocket, right? So let's just say that I'm going to go out 10 years on that. 260 times 10 years, 121, $31,200 in cash flow. Now, Eric, what is if the borrower all of a sudden says, "Hey, I'm selling the house, I'm refinancing, I'm paying this thing off."
They call Nick the note guy and say, "Hey, I'm selling."
No, they call the bank. They call the bank, or the title company calls the bank. Who's the bank? Well, we're the bank. You're the bank. Whoever's holding the lien, the mortgage, is the bank.
The servicer gets a request for payoff.
So they
get in 2032, they owe you $26,900.
They've already paid you about $30,000 in total.
They paid us 31, and you get another fat check for $27,000. Okay. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not that greedy, and I'm okay not owning the property when I get those kind of returns, because my returns are technically infinite because I had no cost basis in this deal. How many deals can you do before you run out of money if you're making $3,000 a deal? How many before you run out? You can do as many. I mean, it's a rhetorical question for Gavin and Don, but you don't run out of money if you make money every single time. Okay, understand that concept? Okay. However, if you got to put 10, 20% down in a rental property, well, that's great if you got the money to do it, but not everybody's sitting on a stack of cash that can afford. Let's just say you can invest $20,000 for $260.
Well, no. Hey, Nick, let me ask Dave a question. So how many burrs do you do? Now, obviously, you're probably a master at finding great deals, so this might not be the best, but how many burrs that you do you get 100% of your money back?
Now, 97% of them. But I've also done I've done 200 burrs.
Okay.
But
you're getting most of your money back at closing.
Yeah, I mean, I've mastered the strategy at this point.
Yeah.
So now I just walk with 50
How
grand
many
on
deals did you have to do? And this is because I know how many notes I wrote before I figured this out. How many deals did it take you to figure out that you could actually probably get 100% of it? How many did you do
I knew day one that was the possibility, but there was a trial and error phase there. Yeah, and it probably took me 40 deals to be able to do it consistently without having to leave 5, 10, 20 grand in.
In the beginning, I was leaving banking opportunities out there where they'll just keep lending you money forever.
Because he's a seasoned investor now. They're throwing money at him probably now, right? Everybody's throwing money at people that know what they're doing. But you got to get to that point, right? It took you 40 deals to get to that point, right? Well, and it took me about 500 notes that I wrote, what I would call incorrectly based on what we're talking about now, where it was a straight transactional model. And I call that
the $6 million mistake.
No, I get what you're saying, Nick, in terms of not structuring it the right way in the beginning.
Sorry, I had an itch on my nose. Did you?
In the beginning, you probably weren't setting up the seconds. You were just selling notes.
No, that's right. That's the $6 million mistake he's referring to.
So now, and just like it took me a while to be able to get no money out of pocket, it took you guys a while. So this is awesome.
Yes.
To know, hey, why
don't I joke with these? So when Eric and I are speaking,
keep this note because we don't have any equity or we don't have any capital invested into it. Like you said earlier, infinite returns. It didn't cost anything other than time and brain power to create that second.
Yeah.
Now that we own that second, we can collect on it every month until they pay us off or until 30 years elapses.
Yeah, I joke when Eric and I are speaking. Yeah, I can hang up. I'll say one thing. We talk about this, and this might be really important for the audience. Is I always ask people that I'm talking to, who was doing real estate before 2008, right? And I usually get about 3 or 4 hands in the group because everybody's young, right? Everybody's young and they don't know what we're talking about, Dave, right? They didn't go and understand it from before, so they have a huge opportunity to take advantage of what we're talking about, whether it be you and the burst strategy or what we're doing on the notes, and accelerate that learning curve and get to the end game a hell of a lot faster than we did. That's the ultimate benefit of this.
Well, Dave, what if you took your entire portfolio, eliminated taxes, insurance, maintenance, vacancy, repairs, and passed all of that to all of your tenants? What would happen to your cash flow?
Oh yeah, I mean it would go way up, absolutely. And I'm doing some of these as well.
Because then once you have the debt, then you can do whatever creativity you want to do at that point. But
absolutely,
it's a big deal. It's a big number.
Yeah. And I'm doing some. I'm not doing a ton. I like owning the asset. I don't like the fact that they can buy the asset out from underneath me. Yeah. I like owning the asset because here's I think the big difference in my mind.
That's what apartments are for.
Say that again.
That's what we do. We do notes for cash flow. We own apartments so we can own those forever.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. But I also don't like paying taxes. And what you guys are doing is creating a ton of income, which is great. Income's awesome. You pay taxes on that. Whenever I have tenants paying down my properties, I'm creating wealth that's tax-free until I want to realize that tax. Right?
Okay, gentlemen, I'm gonna bump in here. We're at a hard hour. Gavin and I both have to go.
That was a record, by the way.
Gavin and I both have to go.
You guys did good. You guys did really good.
Yeah. So tell us how to find you guys, because obviously, like I said, it's rocket science crammed into a tube in a very short amount of time. Tell us how to find you guys if people want to learn more and have a little more time with you guys to understand what you're doing.
Gavin's going to post Eric's mobile number in the chat for everyone.
Yeah, I'll do it now.
Do that now.
Just call him anytime.
It's Creative Deal Machine.
No, Eric, can you put it in there?
Creative Deal Maker.
I would say go to the Be the Bank Blueprint. Yeah, Be the Bank Blueprint will take them to the webinar, and they can see. I don't care if they buy it or not. It's not that expensive, regardless. It's worth way more than we charge, which is there again. That's another story.
So then
Be
the bank blueprint.com, and you have Creative Deal Maker as our private Facebook group. And our private Facebook group, you just ask to join. We let you in, and then we do literally a weekly call like this every week, and we just talk about our deals that we're doing. People love it. I mean, we get 40, 50 people on the call. Actually, it's growing because people are liking what we're doing. But it's a good little group, and we're just kind of sharing our story.
But in the webinar, it walks through the case study and it talks about exactly what we just did. But it's a much better approach because it's visual, right? You can actually see what grandma's house looks like, for example. You can actually see the model also. You can see where the cash now, cash flow, cash later comes from. And then in there, you can even, if you join the Creative Deal Maker Facebook group, we'll give you the model for free. It's just a spreadsheet. You just plug it in and you can have it and knock yourselves out. And hopefully it's a deal, because the benefit to us is, I'll be quite honest with you, we get to take advantage. If you go write these notes, David, Gavin, whoever, and do what we tell you to do and write in the way that we want them written, because we know what's going to get the most money, we're a buyer for all that stuff. Uh-huh. We're an instant buyer for all of that notes, so you can exit out quickly on that first lien. And here's the other thing that we're able to do if you follow the protocol, is that when that borrower goes to underwriting and we get that file back, we can look at that file in a very short period of time and say, we will pay X for that deal. So think about it. You don't even have to approve the buyer unless you know we're willing to pay for that note. So big deal.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's really cool. I didn't know that.
Right.
That's what,
Dave,
so Dave, one of the
real quick. Real quick.
Ahead.
Dave, I'm going to leave you on. I have to get off because I'm supposed to be going live. I'm late. So
yeah, do your thing, man. No problem.
Dave's going to hang with you guys. Guys, I appreciate you coming on, and then I'll see you probably both next week when you're in town.
We'll see you next week, buddy.
Thanks, man.
Take care.
Don, you're staying around
one
too,
of the things.
I got like 1 minute.
People are like, "Hey, I got this deal."
I just leave my camera on all the day, and then anybody just joins in and joins out. I'm always here.
No, but this is what they say. They're like, "Hey, I did the hard part. I went and found a deal. Well, how am I going to go find a note buyer now? You know?" And that's where we can help with that. So that's why the USA Note Pro will actually help. The coolest thing is you go through the protocol. You go into our Facebook group. You have the spreadsheet. You just plug in the numbers. It pops out what we talked about. And if it fits that deal and it goes through the protocol that we have, we'll buy the note. So now we give you the exit. So how many free and clear $30,000 notes do you need?
At the end of the day, this is just one strategy. That's all it is, David.
Absolutely, guys. And please don't think that I was like playing devil's advocate here. I just wanted to break down the
I'm glad you
did. For everybody, because I've done a couple of these deals. You guys have done thousands of these deals. Don's done a bunch of them. Gavin's done a bunch of them. But not everybody listening, and this is a podcast too, so somebody might stumble across this in 6 months or 6 years, right? Sure. Not everybody that's listening or watching knows the steps. You guys did a phenomenal job of breaking those steps down. You provided a ton of value, and I want to take a second to just say thank you guys for coming on the show.
Thank you.
We're ultra grateful for the time that you guys have shared with us today, and I want to make sure that all the listeners and viewers know where to go to connect with both Nick and Eric. So you guys mentioned bethebankblueprint.com. What does that take you to? Bethebankblueprint.com.
That goes to our little 45-minute little video webinar, for lack of a better word, that walks you through the entire model. We show an actual true model where we show you the actual property, and we walk through the whole process on how we generated cash now, cash flow, and cash later.
Love it. Okay, you mentioned a Facebook group, though. What's the group or what's the URL that takes you there? This is separate. So, guys, bethebankblueprint.com is basically free training. Go check it out. If you guys want the Facebook group access, that's different. What is that URL?
You just go to Facebook and put Creative Deal Maker in there, and it'll pop you right in.
So Creative Deal Maker is that. Okay,
yep.
Love it.
What it's called. Mm-hmm. And then once you're in the group, we talk about the creative
and Facebook group. That's why I'm asking. I want everyone that's listening to be able to connect with you guys.
Don's got to go.
Yeah, after the fact. So again, you guys did a phenomenal job of explaining all of that. And again, I want to thank you guys for coming on the show. And I'm super grateful to have have some of your guys' time. You guys gave us a ton of value, when it comes to doing these. I love it. Guys, anything
you just makes you think about there's more than one way to get the deals done.
Oh, absolutely.
That's the bottom line. Just be thinking about that.
100%. Nick, you had mentioned USA Note Pro as well. I want to talk about that briefly as well.
Yeah, that's just for notes,
guys. USANotePro.com. It's a whole different URL. And what is that?
So that's just a note side of the business, right? When you have the note that's finished and you're ready to sell it, okay, that's the note side of what we just talked about. That's what
you want to sell like you want to sell a house, sell the note. We'll give you an offer on that note.
We'll give you an offer on the note.
So you guys will give an offer on the note, but also help individuals analyze deals that may have a note for sale to see if it's
absolutely
worthy.
That's why we created the Facebook group. So I put the Facebook group link in here, the Creative Dealmaker Facebook group link for our group. That's why we created a group so people can get on a call and get access to us on a weekly basis.
Love it. Guys, I'm going to share some of these URLs in the chat for the listeners that are here today.
Oh, that must be the private chat.
Yeah, it's okay. No problem. Okay, so
there we go.
And then I want to put another
URL.
one.
We got USANotePro.com URL going in there. And then last but not least, guys, we have, and the Facebook group is called Creative Dealmaker, by the way. And then Be the Bank Blueprint we had already shared. You guys have tons of resources. This is awesome. Anybody?
And there's actually an ebook. If you go to, it's on the USA Note Pro site, but if you go to nickthenoteguy.com, there's an ebook that talks about selling notes and buying notes. And it's just a good how to, good best business practices and some of the things to be thinking about. Here's the best part about this, and we can go. All of this stuff we're talking about, there's qualified third-party relationships out there that can help facilitate all of this stuff on your behalf. You don't have to know anything about underwriting. You don't need to know anything about servicing. You just need to know who to go to get them to help you do it on your behalf.
I love it. Nick, Eric, guys, thank you so much for your time. Super, super grateful to get this opportunity. I know you guys provided a ton of value to the audience, the listeners, the viewers. Guys, thank you so much. Guys, don't forget, check out all of these great resources. Start with BeTheBankBlueprint.com. That's some free training. Go on over to their Facebook group, Creative Deal Maker. And then last but not least, USANotePro.com. And with that, guys, thank you. And we are signing off. See you guys.
Another deal.